Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. Yet another terrible instance of the Liberals never really meaning what they say, which again, it's not surprising, but it's definitely bothersome. Now, the issue in question is one that has been going on for a few days now here in Canada, and that's the controversy surrounding the Minister for Crown-Indigenous Relations, Carolyn Bennett. So Carolyn Bennett got into hot water about 48 or so hours ago because she was responding to something that another MP, an MP by the name of Jody Wilson-Raybould, had said in the House of Commons. Miss Raybould, who used to herself be a sitting Liberal MP but left due to differences with the party, and now sits as an independent member of the House, she got up and was talking about how it's actually wrong for Justin Trudeau to clearly be jockeying for an election while a pandemic still, is kind of happening. Carolyn Bennett took a screenshot of, one of her comments or something like that, and she replied to Ms. Raybould saying, pension? Now, for context here, the way it works with Canadian Parliament is that MPs get a pension after 6 years. So they usually have to win at least one re-election in order for them to qualify for their pension. And as many people are talking and referencing, this is clearly a racist comment due to the idea that natives in Canada just want free stuff and free government money. And the reason why people are saying this is racist is because of that, and also because Jody Wilson-Raybould herself is an Indigenous woman. And I remind people, Carolyn Bennett is the MP for Crown-Indigenous Relations. So that's the background to everything that's blown up in the wake of that. What happened afterwards was Justin Trudeau saying, well, this is very wrong, but I stand by my minister. And she's faced pretty much zero real consequences. And now there is a growing push to have Carolyn Bennett resign. But rather than tell people why, I'm instead going to try and amplify an Indigenous voice. And it's an Indigenous voice that I follow on Twitter. The voice in question is Terrell Tailfeathers, and he's an Indigenous man. And he has been very prolific in terms of posting about various injustices faced by natives continuing to this day, taking Liberal partisans to task in their replies, pointing out that, the situation is actually really terrible and needs drastic action and change, and these people are being deliberately ignorant about it. He was also followed for a period by Carolyn Bennett, and as he himself says, she unfollowed him. But to give an example of the work that he's doing online to try and give Liberal heads a shake or two, there's this one here, which I'll just throw on screen. Some lady is saying, this is very sad. Minister Bennett has been sincere, hardworking, and largely effective in her portfolios over many years of public service. And Terrell rightfully says, what's sad is that people actually believe this. Bennett is a monster who fights First Nations children and residential school survivors in court and has been spending all her time trying to extinguish First Nations rights through modern treaty and self-government devolution agreements. And yeah, that's kind of what's happening. For all the talk of Canada's going to implement the UNDRIP or the UNDRIP, we're Indigenous rights. See, look at us. We're so great. We're so progressive. They changed it so that it makes a contingent on Canada basically declaring what is and isn't acceptable under the confines of the law to broadly over-summarize and oversimplify what they're trying to do. It's not actually giving power and representation and safety to Indigenous peoples. It is yet another continuation of the terrible imperialist and colonialist state that Canada is. It is not progress, it is propaganda. And again, really want to bring home the point that Carolyn Bennett is the Minister for Crown-Indigenous Relations, which brings us to yet another point that she is in many ways the one responsible for the fact that the federal government, again led by Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, continue to take Indigenous kids and residential school survivors to court, as Terrell rightfully points out. This is unacceptable, or rather it should be unacceptable. The Trudeau government has spent more money in less years taking Indigenous people to court than Stephen Harper did in nearly 10 years. That is how bad the current modern situation is under the super progressive and gender balanced cabinet. And, we actually care about progress and look at all this diversity that we have and we're supporting. And I'm Justin Trudeau and I'm taking a knee at a climate protest while buying pipelines. And all this just comes back to a point I've made several times on this channel and in articles I've written in various other places. The liberals and the conservatives are two sides of the same neoliberal coin. At the end of the day, their differences are superficial in all the ways that uphold all this terribleness that is keeping us down and making life worse and worse by the day. They agree on all of that. If the liberals actually cared about the things they claim to care about, such as Indigenous rights, climate change, helping your average working class Canadian, then they would have supported NDP and Green Party motions to tax the wealthy, implement a Green New Deal, not buy pipelines, end fossil fuel subsidies, etc., etc., etc. Instead, they actively vote against it, and they and their happy little shills and trolls on the internet will try and find every justification for why it's not possible. Well, it's not pragmatic, or it's not our jurisdiction, even though it actually is. And, we just can't do it because what the NDP were asking for, it was just too much. You need good, sensible leadership because we're so sensible. That's why nothing is getting better, right? This is the sad reality, and unfortunately, Trudeau is definitely jockeying for an election, probably this summer or this fall. And it's really, really unfortunate given the fact that currently they're clawing back the emergency response benefit that a lot of people still rely on. They haven't actually fixed any real major problems that have happened, whether it's, long-term care, introducing pharmacare, dental care, anything like that. Various other people have pointed out in the past that the Trudeau government actually got together with the oil and gas lobby to arrange for how it's going to be post-pandemic. Also recently in other news, and it's a little bit of a spoiler for tomorrow, the head of the CRTC, the communications, office, if you want to call it that, has been apparently having numerous one-on-one interviews and meetings with all the bigwigs of Canada's big telecom companies. So yeah, totally not a conflict of interest there. This is just a continuation of the 40 plus years of terrible neoliberal economics that have ruined the modern world. And it has been wholeheartedly adopted by the two main parties here in Canada. And, wherever you go, right? It's the same in Australia. It's the same in the United States. It's the same in Britain. Actual change is needed, whether that comes in the form of choosing different parties that we send to Parliament or various different ways of using direct action to get the changes we want, outright revolution, whatever it is, something needs to change, and it needs to change soon, as long as we continue to support progressives like Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party and people like Carolyn Bennett, who are supposed to be the people responsible for healing this rift. And so long as they keep just doing and saying terrible, racist, and abusive things, we're never going to solve this problem, let alone the myriad of problems that continue to happen under their leadership or because of their leadership. And the fact that there are more people, either online or in the real world, who still intend to vote Liberal, even though they do not deserve any votes, is definitely what's bothering me today.